Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
This is the Edge of Liberty podcast.
Get ready for truth bombs, belly laughs, the kind of accent that turns car into a two-syllable adventure. Here's your host, Sean.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. Thank you so much for joining us. Not easy. It's a tough job, I'll tell you. It's the 11th of February, 2026. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate everyone who's already in chat. I see Phantom in there. Canada Heavy Hall's in there. Going to go around the world tonight. We're going to talk about Pam Bondi and the Oversight Committee today. Talk about the jobs report here. Talk about Iran and Armenia. But first, start off with this tragedy in British Columbia. It's horrific. A mass shooter walked into the Tumbler Ridge school in Tumbler Ridge, British Columbia, and left 9 dead and 27 injured was the last that I saw. The suspect was 18-year-old Jesse Van Roosteller. Police said Roosteller was born male and began identifying as a female about 6 years ago. We'll talk about that. Police said the suspect killed his, they keep saying there, we'll definitely talk about that, killed his mother and 11-year-old stepbrother at the family home before the attack. He had a history of documented mental health. RCMP said officers had attended the residence numerous times for mental health-related calls and that the suspect had been apprehended under the British Columbia British Columbia Mental Health Act for assessment. The firearms that were involved were actually previously seized by the RCMP and were later returned to the owner after appeal. The attack, police said the suspect entered the school with the long gun and a modified handgun. Authorities said one teacher and 5 students ages 12 and 13 were killed inside the school. Another victim later died while being transported to the hospital. A suspect was found unalived at the scene with a self-inflicted wound. RCMP said officers arrived within 2 minutes of the call and encountered the active gunfire. Reports right now, like I said, 25 people have non-life-threatening injuries. And of course, there's the 9 that have perished. Prime Minister Mark Carney, who is if you see his socials right now, people are not happy with him, called for the attack an unheard of cruelty and said Canada was in shock and mourning. And there'll be flags flown at half-mast. And British Columbia, for what a lot of people don't realize, has had a lot of violence recently anyhow. There's a whole extortion-linked murder war going on in British Columbia that the news down here is not talking about. And if I have time Monday, maybe I'll pick that up a little bit. But this incident, yeah, you have this kid who has a series of mental illness. He's obviously identifying as transgender. There was a history that obviously was ignored on some level, or it wasn't ignored, but not enough was done. So you do have a failure in the system in British Columbia. And according to Canadians, including one in our chat room right now, Canada Heavy Hall, handguns were banned in Canada 3 years ago. So the possession was illegal to begin with. And then, of course, there's all these other issues that's with this. But the mental health issue is what needs to be addressed the most. Look, the police were there. I understand they dealt with him numerous times. The family clearly called, but obviously, obviously, this kid had so many issues going on that it blows my mind. Look, I mean, I know the mother perished and the sibling perished, but first and foremost, I'll tell you right now, when you own firearms, it's your responsibility to dead one. And I don't care where you are. So I don't know how he got access to the firearms. He commits the murder, he goes to the school, he does the mass shooting. RCMP really tried at first to cover up the fact that he was transgender and that it had a history of mental illness. Maybe not cover up, but just dance around. They were not forthcoming. Yes, the gun laws did not stop the gun violence. It's amazing how that works. It never does. And then the weird fallout that came with it. Now, first and foremost, like I said, if you go to Mark Carney's social media posts and just read down, it's absolutely insane how pissed off a lot of Canadians were. Guns in Canada are very hard to come by. Canada Heavy Hall is explaining a lot in the chat. He is Canadian, so he would have a good idea. You have to do a 2-day training course to get their gun license. And you need that to even be able to buy ammo before you can, or buy the gun. We have a history, and I don't understand the craving for these mentally disturbed people, specifically who are changing gender or trying to change gender or taking meds or aren't or whatever, to go to a school and take all of these people with them. I mean, clearly there's a mental illness thing. Clearly there's an issue going on. We know that. That's not even up for discussion. I don't understand why. Look, if you want to unalive yourself, go and do it. Like, it's terrible. Wish you'd get help. I wish it wouldn't happen. But okay, if you make that decision, but going to take out other children and family members is a depravity that is beyond comprehension of the mind. And then to try, if you will, to, when you're the law enforcement who has to respond to this, and this is a major issue in any country. This would be a huge issue. You have to know the questions are coming, and you have to know that you're going to be forthright with the answers, because the answers will eventually come out. And we've seen this in this country, and you see this in Canada right now. I'm going to play the clip in a second, where it's just, don't dick around with the facts and try to be cute about it, because what's going to happen is that you're going to look like a bigger a-hole. And now you have a tragedy, which this was an absolute tragedy. And then as the law enforcement response, where you're supposed to be, when you're in law enforcement, even if it's a small call, you're supposed to be the voice of reason. You're supposed to be what calms the situation. You're supposed to be what gets information out, yada, yada, yada. You're supposed to be that symbol that everything's at least taken care of now. And when you come out and you're mealy mouth and wishy-washy, and everyone knows there's more to the story, and you're not being forthcoming about it, and it's not even like, if he just said, hey, I'm not allowed to answer that right now because it's part of the investigation. Okay. I know people hate that answer, but I know sometimes you have holdbacks. There's more investigation going on. Maybe there was another person, whatever the reason. I understand when that needs to be said. I say that in this country too. Well, they're not telling us anything. No, they're not, because they can't right now. The Savannah Guthrie, you think you know everything about the Savannah Guthrie case? No, none of us do. We know bits and pieces that we're allowed to know. But when you're working an actual investigation and you're working these crimes, just like when I was in law enforcement, anyone else in law enforcement tell you, there's certain things that you need to sit on, because you're either taking action on it, you're waiting for something to develop on it, you're waiting for a ping on a cell phone, you're waiting for a bunch of things. And if you put out information and spook who you're after, or whatever the case is, you have to hold that back until it's ready. And then you come out and say, okay, this is what we had. We knew this then. We had to wait on it, yada, yada, yada. And this feels like this should be PIO 101, Public Information Officer 101 stuff that, hey, you're going to go out there, you're going to be direct with the facts that we can share. You're going to completely be honest about the fact that you can't answer certain things. And if it's not mentioned, don't bring it up. But if it is mentioned and everybody knows it's not really relevant to a continuation of the crime or somebody else's future or well-being is at risk because of what you're going to say, then just come out and fucking say it. And I'm going to play this video. This is the RCMP. I think he's the area chief, district chief, doesn't matter. Whatever that is, boss. And listen to how he starts to describe the shooter.
We're not hiding it. In fact, you're the first media to ask the question. I will say this. We identified the suspect as they chose to be identified in public and in social media. I can say that Jesse was born as a biological male.
Should have said this first.
Approximately, the information that I have, approximately 6 years ago, began to transition to female.
Okay. And that's fine. Like, I don't care about that per se. I don't care about the history, but let's be honest about everything up front. And people who say, oh, it doesn't matter. No, it does matter, because we've seen this sort of activity in this country and other places around the world. It's something that needs to be talked about and addressed. That does not say every single person who is in a transition in their life is going to do this, but this should at least start to have an understanding of this. Right? It's just, you can't ignore the realities of this. It is a major part of the investigation because it ties into the mental health issue. And I know there are plenty of people who say it's not a mental health issue because, you know, they're okay, but it was up until pretty recently. Pretty fucking recently. And the only reason it's not a mental health issue now is because they can make money off of it. Just like they made money off of COVID and a lot of other things. And you know that's true. All the things that we found out after COVID, but we know what the drug companies are doing, how quick they were pushing, I'm not saying that they didn't help on some level in some people, but we found out that money was a much bigger driver than the cure and the solution was. And that is what's happening with these young people who are not being treated for a mental health issue. Just because you want to identify as a woman and you're born a man does not mean you have a mental health issue per se. But what I'm saying is there are a lot that seem to have that problem. And like I said, that want a long time ago used to be dealt with in a mental health situation. So for him to come out and be like, well, we originally called them they, and they didn't really want to talk about it at first. Super, super dodgy on it, which is just frustrating because that's not what the victims or anyone else deserves in this situation. You come out, you have a good presence, you say what you're going to say, you give the information you can, you would admit when you can't give information or you don't have information, and you move on. But this is the problem when you're talking about the trans and the mental health issues, is nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to say it exists. They want to act like it doesn't. We see it a lot. And before you come at me and be like, oh, you just hate all people and blah, blah, blah. No. Just like I say with homeless all the time. I don't want to see somebody who's drug-addled, who can't care for themselves, wandering around the street with piles of feces in their hand, wiping it on themselves. I want them to get help too. I want them to get actual help. You know, it's so funny how the polarity of this country, the mass majority of this country hates big pharma. They hate the healthcare system. They hate insurance companies. They hate all of this on so many different things. But when it comes to this, they just, nope, this is exactly, everything's perfect. Everything's fine. We'll take this handful of studies that we've done that really doesn't affect the entire world, the entire community, and then we'll just run with that information. And when you say, well, wait a minute, maybe we should be dealing with the mental health aspect of this because there are some that have severe mental health issues that go along with it. No. It's just you're a bigot, you're a homophobe, you're a xenophobe, whatever you want to call it. Every phobe in the world, nobody gives a shit anymore because it doesn't mean anything anymore when you say that a billion times. And this is absolutely a nod to mental health throughout the world does not seem to be taken seriously. I will admit to that on every single level, even outside the trans conversation. But there's a reason why there's a high suicide rate with trans. There's a reason why lately we're seeing more and more trans people committing violent crimes. And it's not the lack of acceptance. Most people don't give a frog's fat ass. Most people in this world do not care. Hey, you want to wear a dress and go get lunch? Go for it. Nobody cares. Hey, you want to shave your head and put on a flannel shirt and go get lunch? Nobody gives a shit. It's when it's affecting other people or when the actual problems are being ignored that are obvious and seen and being written off as just, well, you're just a bigot if you don't accept that. No. It's not the same thing. And I'll say the same for a lot of other mental illnesses, murderers, schizophrenics, all this other stuff that we've seen commit these horrible crimes that we've dealt with, or at least we've tried to deal with or deal with. But they don't do that with the trans community because they've immediately turned around and said, if you question anything that goes on in this circle, you are immediately bigoted. But we hate Big Pharma except for when they give us hormone pills for this. And we hate the healthcare industry unless they lop off a 15-year-old's parts and butcher up a kid who is too young to make their choices and too young to understand what their future is going to bring. And it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And I know all the anti-gun people are going to blame the gun every single time. I'll blame the people who didn't secure the weapon from him. Absolutely. If you can show that he didn't break into that and I don't have that information in front of me, then yeah, I'm okay with charging that. I'm all for being a responsible firearm owner, but the firearms don't commit the crimes. It's the same thing when you talk about black on black crime in this country and how the rates are astronomical. And you're called all of these names because you're like, no, I just don't want to see these kids shooting each other down on the street. We got to have a root conversation about what the actual problem is in these communities. And it just, as soon as you bring that up, they just want to attack and attack and attack. Two things can be true. You can not necessarily agree with the lifestyle, which I don't care. I'm pretty libertarian about stuff like that. I don't care what people do in their private lives as long as you're not bothering anybody else. Legitimately. As long as you're not like trying to indoctrinate kids and having library drag shows, I don't give a shit what you do. But I can also say that something needs to be addressed that's not being addressed entirely or throughout the community. And the community itself should want this fixed. The people who see this and they know this. You know, this is why you have a lot of the LGBT community trying to get away from the T and the I and all the other ones that come behind it because they're saying, no, they're very separate from us. We don't want any part of that. A lot of it had to do with the grooming, but there's also the mental health aspect. And that doesn't mean that they're bigoted against them. It's just we don't want to be looped in with that because they have issues over there and we've kind of resolved our issues. We're just going to work and, living our lives and nobody cares. And it's true. Nobody does really care. And I mean that in a way of nobody is that bigoted about it. You're always going to have some bigots somewhere. Yeah. Who cares? You just ignore them. That's life. That comes from every background, every walk of life. It doesn't matter where you are. There are people that are going to hate other people just for who they are. Yes, white people, black people, Hispanic people, Asian people, trans, gay, whatever. You're always going to have pockets who hate them or hate from them. But when you're looking at an incident like this, another one, where there are very specific flags that were put up and then a pattern that was followed yet again. And I don't know if we've gotten the manifesto. I don't know if that's come out yet. I hadn't seen it. I looked really quick. It didn't come out. But that's something that needs to actually start being talked about before more tragedies happen. And they said, for all the people who are going to argue the weapon, there's been plenty of other tragedies that have been committed with things other than a firearm. I got to take a break. Please do me a favor. If you like anything I said, even if you hate it, please like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you to our friends over at KLRN for the simulcast. Be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the SHR Media Shop. This is not just merch, it is a statement. SHR Media is built as a rebellion against the mainstream. We deliver truth without a filter or permission. When you wear our gear, you are standing for liberty and unapologetic free thought. Every piece is a badge of support for independent journalism. Wear it loud, wear it proud. Support the mission and join the rebellion at the SHR Media web store.
Are you looking for a way to boldly express your faith and love for your country? And check out Seven Armors, the premier apparel company for patriotic men of God, where faith meets freedom in style. Our t-shirts are more than just clothing, they're statements. Bold, stylish, and meaningful. From timeless messages to modern designs, we've got something for every patriotic man of God. Wear your beliefs proudly with Seven Armors gear. Don't miss the chance to wear your faith and freedom on your sleeve. Visit 7armors.com today and join the movement. That's the number 7armors.com.
Hello, friends. Do you have a moment so that we may discuss our Lord and Savior Minarchy? No, seriously, I'm just kidding. Hi, my name's Rick Robinson. I am the general manager of KLRNradio.com. We are probably the largest independent podcast network that you've never heard of. We have a little bit of everything, and by that, what I mean to tell you is we have news, pop culture, special events, conspiratainment, true crime, mental health shows, drama productions, and pretty much everything in between. So if you're looking for a new podcast home to grab a little bit of everything that you love all in one place, come check us out. You can find us on X under @KLRNradio. You can find us on our Rumble and our YouTube channels under the same names. You can also find us at KLRNradio.com and pretty much every podcast catcher known to man. So again, feel free to come check us out anytime you like at KLRNradio.
Welcome to the Reaver of Common Sense, where we cut through the noise of news and politics with a sharp edge. Tune in every Monday and Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for a refreshing dose of reality. We fearlessly tackle the tough topics with no nonsense, just pure common sense. Visit shrmedia.com to discover where you can catch the Reaver in action. He is here to amplify your inner logic. He may not always be polite. He may not always be refined. But one thing is for sure, he always tells it like it is. The Reaver of Common Sense.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Oh, there's my music. I'll get there eventually. Welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHR Media Network. I saw Philip in the chat room mention the shirts look nice. I'm wearing one of them right now. 250 reasons to read source documents, 250 birthday limited edition shirt. You go to the shrmedia.com website, and actually if you go from a computer, there's a link right at the top. If not, just click on shows and you'll see the link for the shop. And as of today, I can give you a discount code, 10% if you use the word freedom, 10% if you use the word freedom. If you want to pick up this shirt or any of the other shirts and products we have on there, there's a couple. We have one for BZ, Mission Ready Men, Reaver of Common Sense, my show, The Edge of Liberty, and of course the limited edition 250th shirt. So thank you very much. If you want to check it out, please go over there and we will absolutely hook you up. So going from Canada, come back home, we're going to talk about the jobs market, the jobs report, I should say. Man, you know, this is something, it's never just an easy answer. And you're like, hey, the jobs report came out, and I looked at it, I was like, oh, cool, you know, job numbers pretty good. Then you're like, yeah, but, and then you go down this rabbit hole, which is how I end up with half these stories. So the job report came out, January beat everyone's expectations. It was estimated, I think, to be at 70,000 and ended up coming with 130,000 jobs. Unemployment rate was 4.3. It went down a little bit. Biggest gains were in healthcare, social assistance, and construction. It's amazing how many construction jobs came up, seeing how we were told that construction jobs are going to go away with immigration enforcement because construction companies like to use slave labor. That's neither here nor there. Job losses were from the federal government. This was a net gain of 130, by the way. With the federal government, which we knew was coming, 34,000, and then financial activities is what it's banking and stuff like that, down 22,000. It also came with addendum that the 2025 job growth revised from 584,000 to 181,000. It went down significantly. Payroll employment changed little in 2025. And the BLS said the employment growth over 12 months ending in 2025 was an estimated 862,000 jobs total. So that's a good bonus. So I started to say to myself when I saw the numbers from last year, I'm like, dude, how is that number so off? How did they not get that when they were estimating this? Because they don't, when you do the jobs report, and this is so boring, but I'm going to tell you anyhow, because I think it's something that people need to understand. When you do the jobs report, what they do is they have this model that they use. It's called the life death model or the something model that the Bureau of Labor Statistics uses to estimate. They don't do it by W-2s or anything like that. And then when they get the finalized numbers based on that at the end of the month or the end of the quarter, then they revise. So I said, how are they so far off? Because it was a huge number to drop. And a lot of it had to do with the economy under Biden was worse than they thought it was. So the numbers they were using was under the Biden administration. That's what they used to speculate what was coming down the line. It was actually worse than what they thought. When Biden took office, the recovery after COVID was booming when he took office. And unemployment hit a 50-year low in 2023 of 3.4%. The rate steadily climbed back up under Biden to 4.0 in mid-2024. By the end of his term, the trend was clearly pointing upward, hitting 4.3%. There was a hiring freeze at the end of 2024. The hiring rate under Biden has dropped to the lowest it had been since 2014, excluding the COVID crash where they shut all the doors and all that stuff. Companies weren't firing people en masse, but they had absolutely they weren't filling spots that were becoming vacant. So the job market wasn't necessarily totally in the toilet under Biden, but it was trending that way. It was on a downhill slide. And then, like I said, they use those to speculate what the future is going to be, which brings us up to the jobs report today. So I'm like, okay, that's interesting. I know that there are people in the chat room who will argue with those numbers, but that's the numbers from the BLM website, that the Bureau of Labor Statistics, rather. Those are the numbers. You don't like them, go fucking look yourself. And then a couple weird things started to happen that I was like, you see so many jobs that are posted all the time. And it's really weird. And last night I was actually watching a thing by a guy who does YouTube called The Fat Electrician. And he was talking about Craigslist. If you have a chance after the show, go check it out. The history of Craigslist is wild and actually very awesome. But he was talking about how Craigslist started all of these online job companies, car sales companies, real estate companies. It all started because of Craigslist. But the one thing Craigslist didn't do that a lot of these other companies are doing, he said, is they weren't making a ton of money off this stuff and they weren't selling your information. And I immediately was like, well, let's look into that. So there's a thing that most people don't know. I didn't know, and I've asked a lot of people around if they knew, called ghost jobs, which are listings by companies advertising roles that do not exist or where there is no intention to hire. So when you hear, oh, the job market's flooded, why can't you find a job? And look, I got laid off. I told you this from my full-time job in August. I've been looking, right? And there's a million jobs out there, and you can submit a million resumes, and then you hear nothing in return. You're like, that's really bizarre. Research has shown that 40% of surveyed companies advertise ghost jobs in 2025. 40% did. And why do they do it? It's for investor optics. it's supposed to also affect the internal morale of the company, and it does it two different ways. If a job company's hiring, a worker feels more secure because they're like, hey, we're growing, we're still building, my job must be more secure, I'm happy to be here. Also, if the company's not doing well or if the morale is really low, these scumbag companies that are out there will use this to say, hey, you're replaceable. Look, we already have your job online. And I was like, it's really a fucking dirty scheme to post these ghost jobs. And a couple of legal scholars have argued that the ghost jobs may actually violate Section 5 of the FTC, unfair deceptive practice. And ghost postings, this is the other side of the dirtiness with this that really, really bothered me. All of these companies, Indeed, Monster, Glassdoor, or whatever, they all get your information through your resumes, because now it's very rare that a company advertises directly. So you use all of these app companies that help get your resume up. We'll help you write your resume and you pay us for this and you do that and da da da. And then they send it off to the company that's actually hiring, that paid a shitload of money to get there. Also, when these companies get your information, they're getting thousands of resumes for jobs, especially remote jobs and good jobs and yada, yada, yada. And what they're doing is they're selling it to fucking data brokers. That's been talked about a ton. So you now have this industry that is not really as concerned with filling fucking jobs as much as is getting as many resumes, because they can sell your information to a data broker, which is why there was a study that the amount that people who suddenly started applying to a lot of jobs all of a sudden started getting all these phone calls and spam emails and all this other shit, because your information's being sold twice. Different brackets from the data, from the AI website company or hiring company, and your company that's actually doing the hiring. It's unfreaking believable. And I've said before, and I'll say it again, selling people's information is a huge, huge fucking problem in this country and throughout the world. And I think it should be made illegal. I think it absolutely should be made illegal. I don't think that it should be allowed. That's just me. I know that there's probably billions of dollars going into Congress from all of these companies that sell and buy people's information that would say otherwise. But yeah, it absolutely pissed me off. And it's just weird. Like when you go down a road, you think about a poor person, and I'm not talking about me. Just don't give a shit about me for a minute. I do think about a person who legitimately lost their job. They're probably working week to week, month to month, or living week to week and month to month. And they get laid off that day, and they did exactly what I did when I got laid off. My job got downsized. You go home, you work on your resume, and you start pounding it out. You start sending it to every place that you can find a listing for that you match, even if it's a temp job, because you got to get back to work to pay the bills. And then all of a sudden, your need to go out and work is now hampered even more, or profited off of by these companies that are taking your information and selling. And it's just the fucking worst, in my opinion. SAVE Act passed the House anyways. Passed the SAVE Act. What was the numbers here? 217 to 218. 218 to 213. One Democrat voted yes, believe it or not, and then there was one no vote. It will now go to the Senate. Senator Mike Lee over there, who's sponsoring the bill in the Senate, says that as of right now they have 44 yeses, so they're getting close. I know there's a whole bunch of bullshit being said about the SAVE Act. Thomas Massey voted yes on the final vote of the SAVE Act, which I will give him credit for, because I did not think Thomas Massey was going to vote yes, because he's been all over the road lately. Who voted no? Oh, that's right. This guy voted no. The guy on the left there. He voted no against the SAVE Act. The amount of misinformation, and I'm going to show you the video here about the SAVE Act, more information that's coming out from the left, is absolutely unbelievable.
The question is always the devil is in the details, right? If you have to produce a passport, for example, in order to register to vote, we have tens of millions of people in this country that don't have access to passport. Are we going to then waive the passport fee of $150 so that it's not an unreasonable poll tax to be able to show proof of citizenship? Another aspect in that SAVE Act is for married women. They say now you have to sign an affidavit. Again, that requires a notary public. Are we going to have notaries at every single poll location? Are we going to require all the married women in this country to go out and then hire a notary to get the affidavit?
It's amazing when they're reading off a mental script, when they've gotten their marching orders on stuff like this, and you can tell they're just rushing through it so they... Oop, wrong person goes off the screen. It's supposed to be me. Getting better at this every day. So I've only been doing it for 14 years. But here's the thing. They brought up, if you don't have, you don't need to have a passport. And I said, Monday night in the show, look, I'll give everyone a government ID. I will pay for that to secure our elections. I will make sure that everybody's allotted their government ID if that's what it takes. If that's what it takes to make sure our elections are secure. And for the Democrats, they should be a no-brainer, because if there's no cheating, what are you worried about? You're just being proved right. Right? If they pass the SAVE Act and our voting rolls don't change all that much, then clearly it was all for naught and you were right anyways, and you can grandstand on that. But they're telling you women are not smart enough to bring their birth certificate and their marriage license if they get married and change their name, or if you change your name, your court documentation, to register to vote if you haven't already registered to vote. If you have a real ID, the ones that are nationwide required, you already meet all the qualifications from that. If you haven't changed your name, you just need a copy of your birth certificate, which you can get online now. It's not hard to do. But they're putting up all of these ridiculous, the sky is falling Chicken Little. This is like repealing the 19th Amendment. Cut the shit. It is not. I will tell you right now, just about every woman I have ever known in my life, and I have sisters, I have a mother, every important documentation that they've ever needed, they know where it is at the drop of a hat. At the drop of a hat. You could be having a conversation randomly about your third grade report card, and the vast majority of ladies will be able to turn around and go, I have mine in the other room. Hold on, and come back out and produce it. Plain and simple. Easy enough. But you're saying they're too stupid. This is going to disenfranchise voters. 80% of the country wants this. 80%. It's not going to disenfranchise anyone. And yeah, like I said, I don't care if you want to add on that you get a free ID. Great. Everyone should probably have an ID. It's probably a smart thing to have. If you're an adult over 18, you should know where your birth certificate is. You should have a copy of your transcripts from school. You should have your social security card. It's called fucking adulting. This is the shit you need. And you have to show an ID to do every goddamn thing on the face of the planet. I picked up medication today. I had to tell them all of my personal information and show an ID just to get my medication. How would I guess that I had a prescription at that pharmacy and I needed a name and date of birth to be exact? I would have to know somebody and know something extra to do that, right? But no, they're double checking. That's fine. Double check. I think it's great. You want to go cash a check? Nobody cashes checks anymore, Sean. It's 2026. There's no check cashing anymore. You just showed everyone how fucking old you are. But you want to go get a drink. You want to use your credit card and not a debit card. They should be asking for your ID. Your ID is required 1,000 different ways and places. And you're an adult. Having your ID on you should not, and being able to prove who you are for a litany of legal reasons in a positive way, is not a monumental task. And securing our elections, one of our most sacred rights, our fucking elections, this should be a no-brainer. Please do me a favor, like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you to the moderators in the chat room. I appreciate you guys very much. Thank you to KLRN for simulcasting the show. I'll be back in a minute.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Welcome to the SHR Media Shop. This is not just merch, it is a statement. SHR Media is built as a rebellion against the mainstream. We deliver truth without a filter or permission. When you wear our gear, you are standing for liberty and unapologetic free thought. Every piece is a badge of support for independent journalism. Wear it loud, wear it proud. Support the mission and join the rebellion at the SHR Media web store.
Attention, all patriotic women of faith. Yep, I'm talking to you, sis. Are you looking for high-quality, super soft apparel that reflects your love for country and your devotion to God? Look no further than Carry Girl Gear. Picture this, you rocking a tee so soft it's like being hugged by a cloud, all while showing off your love for God and country. Sounds dreamy, right? Well, welcome to reality, babes, because that's what we're all about here at Carry Girl Gear. We specialize in super soft tees, tanks, and more, designed specifically for the strong, patriotic woman who proudly wants to carry their message of faith and freedom. When you shop with us, you're not just getting a t-shirt. You're joining a community of like-minded women who are proud to wear their beliefs straight on their tees. So whether you're sipping sweet tea on the porch or leading the charge for faith and freedom, do it in a Carry Girl tee. Because life's too short for stiff, boring tees. CarryGirl.com, where faith and freedom meets fashion.
Come listen to BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon Radio Show. Live on select and exclusive Tuesday and Thursday nights at 11 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. Central, and 8 p.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Rumble channel, SHR Media YouTube channel, X, Twitch, Spreaker, and wherever great conservative podcasts are found. BZ, your conservative Sherpa, guides you through the maelstrom of Democrat, leftist, and globalist lies, chaos, deceit, and betrayal. Raised as a free-range child with dirt, stains, mud, and freedom, BZ broadcasts from North Idaho, comfortably surrounded by actual normal people. Jump into our plush, sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent chat room on rumble.com. Click on live chat to join. Now, with 37% more umbrage and 19% more bulbosity than previous shows, featuring delicious Liberty additives for the best in late-night conservatarian talk radio. BZ reminds you that with great beard comes great responsibility. No chinchillas were harmed, embarrassed, fat-shamed, or the focus of any sarcasm whatsoever in the making of this ad.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Edge of Liberty right here on the SHI Media Network. Down to the last 17 minutes. I'm going to get to Pam Bondi. Don't be too mad at me. But a couple other ones I wanted to point out first. Once I had some people in the chat, EOD Operator, Mission Ready Men, SHR Media, Buffoon of the Week's in the chat, BZ's in the chat, Philip all the way from Australia in the chat. Thank you for being here, folks. Canada Heavy Haul, I know I said hi earlier, but I know you're in the chat. And actually, I think Andy's in the chat. Thank you, Andy, even though you clearly are an a-hole. Let's see who else is in the chat. Oh, that's about it for the last little bit. That's as far back as I'm scrolling anyways. So I think Canada Heavy Haul actually retweeted this, or maybe I retweeted it and he carried it on. But I just found this really funny. Canadians agree. And this is from Warren Kinsella. I don't know who the hell that is. He's some Canuck. And Canadians agree that Alberta separatists asking for U.S. help is treasonous. Oh, the alien's in the room. I'm sorry, alien in chat. I didn't see you. Asking for U.S. help is treasonous in the National Post. Man, I'll tell you, it doesn't matter what you do. America gets blamed for it, or is somehow involved in the blame. It makes me laugh absolutely hysterically. So we had Pam Bondi Pam Bondi was in the Oversight Committee today. It started off, this is why I like Oversight Committees, because they're so calm and relaxing that if you could be Jerry Nadler, hell, you get to sleep right through this.
Protect the American people and
look at him just snuggled away, all sleepy times. And that wasn't the first time that he fell asleep, and it wasn't the last time he had to be woken up by a staffer. So we're off to a good start. So when I talk about term limits, there's a reason for it, and I am for term limits, no questions asked. And the Oversight Committee was called essentially with Bondi in order to talk about the Epstein files. Now, look, first and foremost, I'm not happy the Epstein files haven't been fully released. I understand that it's a major undertaking. I'm the first one to bitch about it. And I'm also the first one to say anybody that's in it that actually did something scandalous and evil and wrong should be hung from a tree. I'm okay with that. 100%. I do not think, much to the liberal chagrin, and as much as they hate this, I don't think Trump's in them. You have the report of the police chief saying that Trump called him and thanked him for taking care of Epstein. I talked the other night about what he may have known, may have not. Okay, put him under oath. Let's find out. But I don't think he was actively participating, which is pissing Democrats off to the point that they're just throwing out those general statements. Well, he's in there 38,000 times. Yeah, 36,500 times or so were campaign emails that Epstein signed up for that said the name Donald Trump. The one thing the Democrats love to leave out of the Epstein files is if somebody says your name in an email, you're in the Epstein files. If they're talking about you, you're in the Epstein files. That doesn't mean every name in the Epstein files is guilty, and that also doesn't mean that people in the Epstein files should get a pass. We should actually suss it out. But when there's 4 million documents and files and everything else to go through, it's going to take a while. Especially, and the other reason why I don't think that Trump's in it is because he signed the bill into law himself. And if you turn around, he could have vetoed it and said, no, I don't think that the victims would be properly protected, and just went with that, and everybody would have screamed and yelled. But he didn't. He signed it. So I don't think, and as much as the Democrats have been edging their followers and the leftists and like almost physically edging them to the point of climax that he is, and then when he's not, they have massive meltdowns. I don't think Trump is in the Epstein file. That being said, I do believe the file should be dumped. I'm not happy with the way that Pam Bondi's handled a lot of things, not just the Epstein files. There's a lot of shit that I'm not happy that she's dealt with. However, today she knew what she was walking into, and it got pretty spicy. Here's Jayapal doing what Jayapal does and complaining as she always does.
Members get to ask the questions, the witness gets to answer in the way they want to answer them.
Now, before we go any further, let me explain a couple things really quick. The Democrats have taken, and the Republicans do too, Congress. I'll just say Congress, so that way people who are pissing their pants in the chat will stop. Congress has done this thing in these hearings where they ask a 3-minute and 30-second question that it requires an intelligent, in-depth response or a lengthy response. And it's not just this hearing, it's a million other hearings. You can go see it yourself. And then when the person tries to respond in full and not just the yes or no gotcha question that they're asking, the trap questions that they ask, then the member of Congress freaks out and tries to reclaim their time. When they set this is all, it's all a show on both sides. I'm happy to admit on both sides. But this is all, most of these Congress people do this so they can play the fundraising clip on the internet when you're watching YouTube to make money. That's all they're doing it for. If they cared about the victims, I'll be honest, all of them would have been saying something during the Biden administration and beyond. But they didn't. They didn't. None of them fucking did. All right, maybe a few on both sides of the aisle said something. But the Republicans were much more vocal than the Democrats were.
Attorney General can
that's
respond.
not accurate, Mr. Chairman.
Because she doesn't like the answer.
Time.
So,
Mr. Chairman,
why
I have asked
didn't she ask Merrick Garland this?
I am reclaiming my time, and when I
will
reclaim my
continue to
time,
answer.
it is
Mr. Chairman, the gentlelady is reclaimed her
I'm not going
time.
to get in the gutter for her theatrics.
And I'm sorry if you didn't. I didn't put that up there. They're now starting to argue. Jayapal did the I'm reclaiming my time, and Bondi's trying to respond, and it just turns into the shit show. And this is what all these hearings turn into now. It doesn't matter what the topic is.
The time belongs to the gentlelady. The gentlelady has 17 seconds.
Thank you. you're not going to answer this question. So let me just
Chairman,
say this.
I'll direct it to
what
you.
a massive
No, I'm
cover-up.
answering a
Mr.
question.
Chairman, will you restore her time? The witness is
I'm not
interrupted.
gonna get in the gutter with this woman.
Stop the
She's
time
doing
and let
theatrics.
me
And Jayapal did I ask a question. Bondi starts to answer. Jayapal starts screaming over her, and Pam Bondi says, "Why didn't you ask Merrick Garland this? He was in front of you twice, and you never asked this question. It was about the Epstein files," which is entirely true. It was never asked. But when you ask a lengthy question and you don't like the answer, and then you immediately just turn to reclaiming my time, I don't care who does it. It's just shitty. Look, if the person in Bondi in this situation, if the person is saying something wrong, let them keep saying something wrong. If they're going to, and I know they only have 5 minutes and they have a lot of questions, but you know that going into it. So ask the one question, you let them run themselves out. If you're trying to gotcha moment and you think that this will be used in order to prosecute them later, look bad later, fundraise, whatever, let them talk. I'll tell you, when I was working in law enforcement, my favorite thing in the world is when you'd Mirandize somebody and then they would just start running their mouth about everything. You'd ask a question, be like, "So what are you doing tonight?" And they'll tell you about 12 other crimes that you weren't even there about. You let people talk, but when you cut them off, and Jayapal's question wasn't unbelievably stupid, but when you cut them off, it makes it look like I don't like the answer, and then you get this.
The gentlelady from Washington controls the time. The gentlelady has 17 seconds. You can proceed with your final 17 seconds.
What a massive cover-up this has been and continues to be. Donald Trump made the release of the Epstein files the center of his political campaign because he thought it would benefit him. Then you got into office, Attorney General, claimed to have a client list, only to then say that there was no list. Your deputy, Todd Blanche, met alone with Elaine Max.
That was true. Pam Bondi said that, and I don't know why the hell she said that. I mean, they have a, and again, I talked about this today. I talked about the messaging being important in a lot of these serious situations. If she was talking about the co-conspirator list and that was called the client list and she was just loose with her words, your words matter when you're in government, and you should be specific. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the files are being completely hit. They've released 3 million of them. They need to release more. Like I said, yes. But again, this is the buildup. This is the edge, because no matter what comes out of those files, and I said, you haven't seen them all. I haven't seen them all. I've already told you my beliefs. No matter what comes out of these files, the allegation is always going to be the cover-up. Even though the Biden administration sat on it like the Biden laptop, the FBI had it under them. They didn't say shit. Why? Because, it started to come out that there's a lot of prominent Hollywood sports people. And I don't give a shit. Reid Hoffman, all the other ones, prosecute them all as far as I'm concerned. If not, where's the cancel culture for Hollywood and all these sports people and stuff like that, and these celebrities? Where's the cancel culture for them? Cancel culture from the left was riding high for years. And how come all of a sudden that stopped and you're only focused on Trump? Because you don't like the answer. And that's been the ongoing problem with these Epstein files, is they don't like the answer, so then they get mad. Jamie Raskin, he was mentioned over 1 million times. Prove it. It's almost like when what's his name there? Pencil Neck. He used to be a representative. Now he's a senator from California. Adam Schiff. When Adam Schiff said, I have the damning evidence that Trump has colluded with Russia, blah, 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 blah. And he never, ever, ever produced anything close to it. And then we found out the whole Steele dossier was bullshit. We all kind of knew it was bullshit, but then it was proven that to be bullshit. This is what they do. They edge, and I've talked about this so many times on this. I've written about it. They edge out these followers who are already emotionally involved. They set them up for all of these things, spewing lies about reality. And then when it doesn't transpire, they turn around and they say, well, you have to send us money so we can stay on this and stay in office. Because if we don't stay on this and stay in office, it's going to fall by the wayside. And what you saw today was entirely a fundraising video that she was trying to make. And this went on. It wasn't just with Jayapal. The whole hearing was contentious. And here's another ounce of proof of how they like to mention certain things, but not mention all of it, but make things seem bigger than they are. And the social media drug addicts, as they pretty much are now, because they're looking for that dopamine hit every time they scroll, will buy it. Here's Jasmine Crockett earlier today,
who is absolutely mentioned in those files. And frankly, we know that he had already been sued prior to him ever entering office, where there were allegations that he sexually molested a child.
We talked about that Monday night. That was part of the open tip line. It was thrown out of court. It was FBI investigation was done on it. Even Aaron Parnas, who's a gigantic lefty reporter, said when you have those open line reports, the FBI gets the information, then they do in the investigation, and you have to wait to determine whether or not it's credible or not. And it was not found to be credible. The woman, as I said Monday night, had a history of mental illness and has sued a bunch of other people for this. So she knows this. All right. This is the woman who just said over the weekend in another interview that, yeah, sometimes I know I'm lying in Congress, and that's okay because the ends justify the means. And she's saying this about Trump right now, that he was sued and we already know all about him. She's setting it up. There's no proof to it, but she's going to put the allegation out there because she knows most people will not follow up truthfully on it.
This is on the record. Now, granted, the case didn't go through and whatever, but we know that.
That's the part that the media will most likely clip out later on when the Democrats and CNN, all the other ones, replay it. She admitted it right there. And this is the same one, the Lake Erie thing. This is the same case that she's talking about, by the way.
Didn't go through and whatever, but we know that the allegations were there way before he even took office the first time.
Yeah, there's a bunch of allegations. And if they were investigated and cleared, then it's no longer an investigation. It's no longer an allegation. It's a closed case. That's how it works. And again, the Biden DOJ had all of this. The same people that were making up crimes and adding a second prong to crimes that didn't exist and applying it in ways that have never been used before in order to prosecute Trump so they could say, oh, he had 37 felonies. Yeah, well, they were all not even felonies until you made them felonies. You literally played by the communist rule book. Show me the man, I'll show you the crime. And that's exactly what they did. And that's pretty much what she's doing there too. Let's see. I had another good one. Andy Biggs had a couple of good comments, a whole bunch of truths that I'll play. I get a couple minutes. I'll play this. This was also from the hearing today.
On that topic.
Because we want to lead the way in the space on that, so we appreciate the help. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll yield back 10 seconds.
Gentleman yields back. We'll recognize the gentleman from Arizona for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a number of UCs.
Gentleman can proceed.
Thank you. Bombshell new docs show Trump called police about Epstein in 2006.
Without objection.
Kamala Harris defends Biden administration decision not to release Epstein files.
Without objection.
Why weren't they released during the Biden administration?
Without objection.
House Democrat Stacey Plaskett exchanged texts with Epstein during 2019 congressional hearing.
Without objection.
New York judge allows Epstein victims' claims against Plaskett to proceed.
Without objection.
Hakeem Jeffries solicited funding from Epstein in 2013 after financier was convicted child sex offender.
Without objection.
Jeffrey Epstein was invited to dim fundraising dinner and to get to know Hakeem Jeffries.
On that
It's
topic.
funny how the left has not talked a lot about Hakeem Jeffries in these files. Isn't that incredible? You would think that if they really were about the victims, even the Democrats would be going after Hakeem Jeffries. Epstein was already convicted. He was already convicted. And Hakeem Jeffries like, hey, can you throw me $250,000? I'm trying to run for a campaign in New York. Right? So the standard should be applied everywhere if you're going to apply it. Right? Just for being there is a bad thing. That's what we're being told. And I'm not disagreeing that if you are communicating one-on-one and plotting and planning with Jeffrey Epstein, that you should be given a pass. Absolutely fucking not. If there's a there, then let's do something about it. But when we talk about, oh, he's already pervert and he's giving all these rich and powerful people a pass and blah, 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 blah. Hakeem Jeffries was begging money off of him. Dirty, filthy fucking money. Money that everyone already knew who Epstein was at that point. Not talked about.
Administration decision not to release Epstein files.
Without objection.
Why weren't they released during the Biden administration?
Without objection.
House Democrat Stacey Plaskett exchanged texts with Epstein during 2019 congressional hearing.
Without objection.
New York judge allows Epstein victims' claims against Plaskett to proceed.
Without objection.
Hakeem Jeffries solicited funding from Epstein in 2013 after financier was convicted child sex offender.
Without objection.
Jeffrey Epstein was invited to dim fundraising dinner and to get to know Hakeem Jeffries by firm working with Brooklyn's Barack.
Without objection.
Brooklyn's Barack.
An email from Leslie Groff to Jeffrey Epstein concerning Hakeem Jeffries fundraising. Epstein file says Biden was replaced in 2019, question mark?
Without objection.
Thank you.
Why hasn't anyone called for Hakeem Jeffries to step down or Stacey Plaskett to step down? Why hasn't anyone, and I'll tell you why, it's because they can't afford to lose them in Congress right now. That's what it comes down to. It comes down to the final numbers politically. Just like the three, I think there's three Democrats right now who are under federal indictment when George Santos was forced to resign immediately upon his indictment. Democrats get a different shake. The New Jersey senator there, I can't think of his name, who had all the gold and the money from Egypt. Bob Menendez. He stayed on right to the very fucking end. Nobody forced him to resign. Santos, it was instantaneous. And look, I'm okay with that. Santos, I've said this before, I was never a fan of Santos. I kind of thought he was a piece of shit. I know he's back and he's trying to make a comeback, whatever. I don't buy him. But why is the standard never applied by the outraged left and the ones who claim to care about the victims, which they don't? It's just like the illegals. They don't care about the illegals. They care about fundraising off the illegals. It's about power. It's about control. They're going to make all of these allegations against Trump because they've been doing it right along since before he came down the goddamn escalator. Like I mentioned Adam Schiff earlier, at one point, Adam Schiff floated the fact that he had video of Trump being urinated on by a Russian prostitute, and it eventually came out that was a goof by two Russian DJs that reached out to him, and he fell for it. So I'm all for an even playing field, but shouldn't all these people who've been named in this, Plaskett, Hakeem Jeffries, shouldn't they have to resign? Shouldn't the three Democrat representatives, the one out of Florida, Oklahoma, and New Jersey, shouldn't they have to resign for their indictments? And I know all the leftists will be screaming because they don't like that answer. They don't like equal treatment. They just want special treatment for them. They want total power and control. And they don't care about having a civil conversation about this. And that's a tragedy of where we are in this day and age. And I really do hope that ends soon. Folks, that's going to be it for me right here on the Edge of Liberty. I'll be back Monday night, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast, right here on the SHR Media Network. And thank you to our friends over at KLRN Radio for simulcasting this broadcast. I greatly appreciate you. Please check out the other shows on the SHR Media Network, Monday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 on the East Coast. You have Reaver Common Sense with Jersey Joe, Tuesday and Thursday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, noon on the East Coast. You have Mission Ready Men with Big E, Tuesday and Thursday nights, 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 on the East Coast. You have BZ's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The Lost Wanderer, occasionally the alien will show up on our YouTube on Sunday nights at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. on the East Coast. And his show is always a blast and always awesome to check out. If you want to grab the merch, shrmedia.com is the place that you can do that at. Special shout out to the moderators. Thank you so much. And anyone who donated this evening, thank you so much for the super chats. I didn't get the alert, but I had the chat closed a lot of time when I have all the screens open, because sometimes I just outright suck at this, not gonna lie. I'll talk to you Monday. Have a great week.